Hey everyone, I'm Ryan. You're watching a 60 Cycle Hum, and in this video, I'm going to explore an issue. Let's call it a problem that has been found. It is a problem that has been found with the AMPRO II Jazzmaster's vibrato unit, the panoramic vibrato. Fender redesigned this vibrato unit for this line of guitars, and it has a lot of really cool features, and they completely changed parts of the guts of it to be more modern and to give you more range. But the problem that's been found is that it bottoms out when you put heavier strings on it. I actually didn't even notice this issue, but my friend Mike Adams, also known as Pusheen, has been documenting this issue, as he's pretty much the expert on offset style guitars and their vibratos and everything else that goes into them. And once I watched his video and, chatting with him and stuff, I realized I do have that issue. It bottoms out right about there. And it's because the spring inside is not stiff enough to kind of counteract the redesign of the pivot point that is in this vibrato versus a more traditional offset vibrato.
This does not bode well for heavier string gauges.
So I didn't notice it because I typically don't dive to the body when I'm using my Jazzmaster or even a Jaguar or another guitar that has this style of vibrato. I do like light little surfy, kind of shaky sorts of wobbles on there. But now that I know that it's bottoming out, I want to address that issue. So what I've done is I've ordered a replacement spring from All Parts. I also have the vibrato unit that came with my Jaguar. This is an MIJ vibrato. I replaced that with a American Vintage reissue vibrato, which I do like more. And I also have the Descendant vibrato here, which I had in my Squier Parts guitar years back. So I'm going to open this up and I'm going to compare springs to see if any of these springs are stiffer. What it needs is a stiffer spring, maybe a longer spring. I don't know. I'm not a spring scientist. But anyways, I'm hoping to find some answers. I might end up just pulling the whole thing out and replacing it, say, with the Descendant, so that I can, do some experimenting to try to track down a spring that will, kind of get that full range back. The whole selling point of the panoramic vibrato is that you have more range across it. So the fact that you're losing range when you go from the stock 9s to heavier strings like the 11s, like I like to have on my offset guitars, is a bit of a bummer. It legitimately is. I have no idea if Fender is working behind the scenes right now, trying to find a solution to this, trying to find their own spring replacements. I hope that they are, but maybe in the meantime, I can get creative and find some sort of solution on my own. So let's get into it. I need to detune this thing and pull this off, and we'll start looking at the guts. By the way, Mike has been making extraordinarily good videos on his channel, so everyone go subscribe right now. Like he is the expert on this stuff, and this is really just me, dicking around, trying to have some fun, trying to find some solutions. There we go. I'll take a fresh picture of this to show off what we're dealing with here and why this design changed so much that the spring tension has become an issue. The whole plate rocks on this little metal block right here instead of rocking, here's a more traditional one, on this little L-shaped bracket. So the pivot point has completely changed. It used to be right down there, and now the pivot point is up on this center axle. So the change of the location has changed the tension that's required to give it full range, which is very interesting. This is an engineering problem. This is a design problem. I want to check out, and that spring looks like it might be different dimensions. I want to check out the spring in my hand and see how it feels tension-wise. Mike was saying he replaced the spring with a spring from a Mastery, and that fixed the issue. But Mastery doesn't sell replacement springs, which would be so nice if they did. Let's try the all-part spring and see how it compares. Try not to mix these up right now. I don't have precise measuring tools here, but they look like the same length. They have a similar amount of winds, but the all parts seems like it's not as wide. It's a little bit more narrow. And it's hard to tell. The wire gauge might be a little bit different. I really can't tell if the firmness is different at all. Let's check out the spring from the MIJ here. Which is fully broken in and aged. This looks very similar. Oops. This feels very similar in width to that all parts, but look, it's a bit more compressed than the all parts currently is. Maybe that's an age thing. You know, just now being able to compare the three together, now I'm getting a sense of differences. These two do feel softer, slightly. Maybe just because this one's broken in, and maybe because this one is a wider spring. Let's try the Descendant now. This has the potential to be a very boring and non-consequential video that I never actually publish. But I've got to film everything I do just in case, right? So the Descendant vibrato spring is longer. Am I tempted to swap it in since I'm not using the Descendant right now? And boy, does it feel firm. That's something I actually remember about the Descendant when it was on the Squire, is that it felt really firm to me. Yeah, it feels a lot firmer. So maybe I should try swapping this in for the time being. The Descendant uses that traditional pivot point. Get it on camera there. That's down there. So maybe the tension won't be an issue. I'm going to have to remember that I'm swapping this. Maybe I should put a little piece of tape in here with a note to remind myself. Original spring is on the AMPRO. It would be great if one of these companies, Descendant or Mastery, would sell just their spring to address this issue. I'm sure they would rather have people buy their entire vibrato unit. I get it. That's probably better business than selling a spring to fix an issue on technically a competitor's product. All right. In theory, I have this all tuned up and set up the way it's supposed to be. I have the trim plate level in there so that if I wanted to, I could easily engage the little lock button. I have it so I can press it in a little bit and then it locks flat. And now it's not going to pull back and go out of tune if a string breaks or something like that. Release that. Let's see. Did the new spring make any difference? Is it still going to bottom out? It did, but much closer to the body. Much, much closer. Right there, about, I want to say, ½ an inch off the body. So that did buy me a considerable amount of range that I didn't have before. Yeah, I can hear that is a much wider range. Interesting. I was missing that, and I didn't even know it. That is interesting. It does feel like it's bought me a much wider range than where it was before. It seemed like it was bottoming out right about there before. Which is on the edge of C or D sharp. I've got my tuner off screen. I wish it was on screen. Let's see what it goes to. B. It drops down to B. If I remember correctly, I mean, this was years ago. 2 years ago, maybe. But I remember, I think it went down to like F sharp with 9s on it. So that's still quite a ways off. So there could still be a lot more range across this. If I put 9s back on it, I could get that range back. 9s and the original spring, obviously. I mean, clearly they designed the panoramic vibrato to operate with 9s because the issue is being caused by heavier strings. That is interesting though. B is, I think that's normal. I think that's a normal range that you probably get out of a pretty standard offset vibrato. I could try it with my Jaguar, but it's a different scale. I've also got the revelator back there that has the mastery on it. So starting out on E. Yeah, it goes to B. Here is the revelator with the mastery. That goes to C. I actually like that it drops to B in concept because it's dropping to a fifth of that E. And in theory, it's dropping to a fifth across all the strings, which is, you know, a musically fun thing to do. But being able to drop to F sharp is extra extreme and fun. So clearly there's room to find a more ideal spring for this. I wish I'd taken a measurement of how deep it dove earlier. I'm kind of just winging this video, guys. I'm just going for it. I wish I'd taken that measurement though and thought this video out a little bit better before changing things. It would be really, really cool if Descendant or Mastery would sell their individual springs as replacements for something like this. Because I didn't test it, but I really don't think this all-part spring was going to make any difference. It felt like similar tension, and it's not as wide as the stock AMPRO II spring. So I didn't even test that. So as far as I know, there's not a direct replacement that you can buy without buying an entire new vibrato. But in that case, you're just going to replace the entire vibrato, right? Unless you're really trying to get that full range that the panoramic is promising. I'm sure if I put like 10s on this, you know, split the difference between 9s and 10s, I would get even more range. But I don't think it would go down to F sharp like it did with the 9s. This is an interesting problem. It's still not solved. It's going the right direction though. We are going the right direction, trying to find a solution. If you're a spring expert, we probably have people in the audience, my audience and Mike Adams' audience as well. People that, you know machine parts. They know machining metal and things like that. They know how to source springs. They know how to order springs. They know what to look for in springs. Hit us up, either me or Mike. Hit us up and help us sort this out. Because neither of us are spring scientists in that way, you know. I think we need some help tracking down a spring that will make this operate the way it's intended to operate, but with heavier strings. Because in case you don't know it, people who love offsets typically love heavier strings. Like traditionally, Jazzmasters and Jaguars came with heavy flat wounds on them They were built around heavy strings, and a lot of the, improvements they've made to this design with the AMPRO IIs kind of gets around needing heavy strings. And a lot of the improvements we've seen over the years with, mastery bridges and descendant bridges and aftermarket bridges address the issues that you get with lighter gauge strings on offsets. So you don't need heavier gauge strings, but I like 11s. I really do. It's more common in surf to use heavy strings. There's a feel there that a lot of people like. It would be excellent to be able to access the full range of what this vibrato can do with your preferred gauge of strings. Does that make sense? All right. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, dislike, leave me rude and nasty comments. Of course, on Patreon, go subscribe to Mike. Come on, guys. His channel is fantastic. He knows so much about offsets. Like, he is a source of knowledge. So if you care about offset guitars, you should be subscribed to him already. And other than that, thanks for watching. Stay grounded. Bye, everybody.